You want certainty, you want clarity. You want guarantees. Yet God may be asking you to trust Him one step at a time. That can feel uncomfortable. But growth often happens outside our comfort zones. Think about the disciples. When Jesus called them, He did not show them every future challenge. He did not explain every hardship. He simply said, "Follow me." And because they followed, their lives were transformed. Your journey may feel uncertain right now. But uncertainty does not mean danger. Sometimes uncertainty is simply the doorway to growth. Many people miss incredible opportunities because fear convinces them to stay where they are. Fear says, stay safe. Faith says, trust God. Fear says, what if I fail? Faith says, what if God succeeds through me? Fear keeps people trapped. Faith sets people free. This does not mean believers never experience fear. Even courageous people feel afraid. The difference is that courageous people do not allow fear to control their decisions. They move forward despite it. One of the enemy's favorite strategies is convincing people that their current situation will never change. He whispers, "You'll always struggle. You'll never recover. You'll never succeed. You'll never heal. You'll never overcome." But those lies ignore one powerful truth. God specializes in impossible situations. Throughout Scripture, impossible situations became opportunities for miracles. A shepherd became a king. A prisoner became a ruler. A fisherman became a leader. A persecutor became an apostle. The impossible became possible because God was involved. Never underestimate what God can do in a single moment. A single opportunity can change your future. A single prayer can change a situation. A single act of obedience can open a new door. God's power is not limited by your circumstances. Sometimes we look at our lives and see limitations. God looks at our lives and sees possibilities. That difference matters. Because your perspective influences your peace. If you focus only on problems, discouragement grows. If you focus on God, hope grows. What you feed becomes stronger. Feed fear, and fear grows. Feed faith, and faith grows. Feed doubt, and doubt grows. Feed trust, and trust grows. This is why spending time with God is so important. The world constantly feeds anxiety. News feeds anxiety. Social media feeds comparison. Negative voices feed discouragement. But God's presence feeds peace. His word feeds strength. His promises feed hope. And hope changes everything. Hope is not wishful thinking. Hope is confident expectation that God is faithful. Even when circumstances seem difficult. Even when answers are delayed. Even when the future feels uncertain. Hope says, God is still working. Imagine how different life becomes when you truly believe that. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin asking, what is God teaching me through this? Instead of saying, this situation is impossible. You begin saying, this situation is difficult, but God is greater. That shift changes your outlook. And your outlook influences your actions. Many breakthroughs begin with a change in perspective, because before God changes circumstances, He often changes people. Before David became king, God developed his character. Before Joseph ruled Egypt, God developed his patience. Before Moses led a nation, God developed his dependence on God. Preparation always comes before promotion. That is a principle many people overlook. Everyone wants the blessing. Few people embrace the preparation. Everyone wants the victory, few people welcome the training. Everyone wants the breakthrough. Few people appreciate the process, yet the process is often where God does His deepest work. It is during the process that faith grows. Character grows. Wisdom grows. Strength grows. Trust grows. Without the process, we may receive blessings we are not prepared to handle. So if you are in a season of preparation, do not despise it. Do not rush it. Do not assume nothing is happening. God may be doing some of His most important work in your life right now. The challenge you're facing today may become the testimony you share tomorrow. The pain you're experiencing today may become the encouragement someone else needs someday. The struggle you're enduring today may become evidence of God's faithfulness later. Nothing is wasted in God's hands. Nothing. Not your tears. Not your failures. Not your mistakes. Not your waiting. Not your disappointments. God can redeem all of it. That does not mean every experience is pleasant. But it does mean every experience can serve a purpose. One day, you may look back and realize that the season you wanted to escape was actually the season that made you stronger. The season that deepened your faith. The season that prepared you for greater things. The season that brought you closer to God. Many people discover God's presence most clearly during difficult seasons. Why? Because hardship has a way of removing distractions. It reminds us what truly matters. It reveals where our trust is placed. It exposes what we have been relying on. And ultimately, it invites us closer to God. That invitation is one of God's greatest gifts, because nothing compares to walking closely with Him. Money cannot replace His peace. Success cannot replace His presence. Achievements cannot replace His love. The world offers temporary solutions. God offers lasting transformation. And transformation begins when we surrender. Surrender is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is recognizing that God's plans are greater than our own. It is trusting His timing. Trusting His guidance. Trusting His wisdom. Even when we do not fully understand. Many people spend years fighting battles God never asked them to fight. Carrying burdens God never asked them to carry. Trying to control outcomes God never placed in their hands. No wonder they feel exhausted. God never intended you to carry the weight of the world, that He intended you to trust Him with it. Imagine laying down every worry. Every fear. Every uncertainty. Every burden. Imagine placing it into God's hands. That is where peace begins. Not when problems disappear, but when trust appears. Peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is the presence of God in the middle of problems, and that peace can sustain you through anything. Today, whatever challenge you are facing, remember this: God sees it. God understands it. God is working through it. You may not understand the entire picture yet, you may not see the breakthrough yet. You may not know how everything will work out. But you do not need all the answers, you simply need to trust the one who does. Because Jesus revealed a powerful truth: those who build their lives on Him will remain standing even when the storms come, not because life becomes easy, but because their foundation becomes strong. So keep trusting. Keep believing. Keep praying. Keep moving forward. And remember, God's delays are not God's denials. His silence is not His absence, His process is not punishment. And your current season is not the end of your story. The God who brought you this far is able to take you the rest of the way. Trust Him. Even now. Especially now, fear is one of the most powerful forces in the human experience. It has stopped people from pursuing dreams. It has destroyed opportunities. It has weakened faith. It has convinced countless people to settle for less than what God intended. Fear rarely announces itself loudly. Most of the time it arrives quietly. It whispers. It plants questions. It creates doubt that it magnifies problems. And before long, what began as a small concern can grow into a giant obstacle. Perhaps you know exactly what that feels like. Maybe fear has been keeping you awake at night. Fear about your future. Fear about your family, fear about finances, fear about health. Fear about failure. Fear about disappointment, fear about what might happen tomorrow. The problem with fear is that it often focuses on events that never happen. It steals today's peace by making us worry about tomorrow's possibilities. Jesus understood this. That is why he repeatedly encouraged people not to live in fear. He knew fear would become one of the greatest obstacles to faith. Think about the storms the disciples experienced. Many of them were experienced fishermen. They understood the dangers of rough water. They had seen storms before. Yet there was one particular storm that terrified them. The waves crashed against the boat. The wind roared. Water filled the vessel. Everything appeared out of control. And while panic spread among the disciples, Jesus remained calm. The storm was real, not because you had all the answers, but because God continued carrying you. Many people underestimate how much strength they already possess. They focus on their weaknesses and forget the victories God has already brought them through. Take a moment and remember the prayers that were answered, remember the doors God opened, remember the protection He provided, remember the moments when everything seemed impossible, yet somehow He made a way. Those memories matter, because they remind us that God's faithfulness in the past is evidence of His faithfulness in the future. The same God who helped you yesterday can help you tomorrow. The same God who guided you before can guide you again. The same God who provided once can provide again. His character does not change. His love does not change. His promises do not change. And that is why believers can remain confident even during uncertain times. Confidence in God is not arrogance. It is trust that it is believing that God remains faithful regardless of circumstances. Many people allow fear to dictate their decisions. They avoid opportunities. They delay action. They refuse to step forward, not because God said no, but because fear said no. Fear often disguises itself as wisdom. But there is a difference. Wisdom seeks God's guidance. Fear seeks safety above all else. Wisdom listens to God. Fear listens to worst-case scenarios. Wisdom moves forward carefully. Fear refuses to move at all. Learning the difference can transform your life, because many of God's greatest blessings exist on the other side of fear. Imagine if Peter had never stepped out of the boat. Imagine if David had refused to face Goliath. Imagine if Moses had rejected God's calling. Imagine if Esther had remained silent. History would be different, and their lives would be different. Courage does not mean the absence of fear. Courage means choosing faith despite fear. That choice is available to you today. You may not control every circumstance, but you can choose where your focus remains, and focus matters. Whatever occupies your attention grows stronger.